What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari, here joined by Korea. Another Friday, another weekend preview. We'll get right into our recap from Thursday's game. Both of us had probably swept-free winners, I would say, with the under and the Texans and Jets game. Just fading both offenses for the most part, and another ugly Thursday night game created. What did you take away, if anything, from that game last night?
Yeah, obviously, it was a spooky spread, but I guess it was spooky for a reason. Andy Moss with some of those catches. I think I'm gone, but I'm back. Anyways, great game, obviously. If you had the under, just very ugly. At halftime, it was 7-0. So, you were thinking, oh, wow, this under's free. If you were the Jets bettors, you were very concerned, but obviously second half came and got a little sweaty near the end, obviously, with, some garbage time potential TDs, but obviously the Jets got the stop there, got the win. So after the touchdown late. It was a little sweaty near the end, but pretty much for the most part, it was pretty sweat free. Like I said, both offenses didn't really get anything moving. Aaron Rodgers, we saw him like potentially almost fall into the grave almost in terms of his football career yesterday in the first half, just couldn't get anything going. We saw the memes of I saw the Jets with the garbage bags and the sad faces and I was thinking, oh man, here we go with the Jets, huh? But they came back, they came alive. But obviously we were just on the under here. That was a great winner there, so we will gladly take that. Obviously that was combined play, but I'll let you take a majority of it. But great winner, obviously. A little sweat near the end, but obviously just kind of more backing. Obviously the fact that both teams were kind of more dominant on the run game. Obviously we saw the pass game for the Jets kind of start to get going probably near the end of the third quarter, obviously fourth quarter, obviously. But you could say that for the total, that may be a little too late, obviously. So that's great for us to see. But Ari, obviously, great winner with the under as well.
Yeah, it's funny because you were saying yesterday that you wouldn't be surprised if you look at the score at halftime and it's 10-3, and it wound up being even lower than 10-3 in terms of the total points. So,
I even said I got back from the Halloween party. I was like, did the Jets score yet?
Obviously it helped that Malachi Corley let go of the ball at the 1 yard line on the easy touchdown. That just at that point.
And then don't forget Kaimi. I even forgot Kaimi Fairbairn doinking the 27-yarder.
Right after he made the 43-yarder, and then they caught roughing the kicker, and they it's just but yeah, obviously it was a scoreless first quarter. At first, it looked like the Texans were going to score again on a Conklin fumble that they recovered and ran back for a touchdown, and then they overturned that to an incomplete pass as well. So there's a lot of crazy moments that could have led to some more points, obviously. But, in the end, even though they started scoring more in the second half, there was just too little in the first half for it to have really any chance of going over. But, by the second half. Hopefully we'll carry this into some more winners for this weekend.
Yeah, obviously, great to have that momentum, obviously, for the end of the month yesterday. Obviously, new month today. Obviously, I woke up this morning. I even saw some college basketball lines for Monday, and I was like, oh, my goodness, we're finally here, Ari. And I got the final college basketball future I'm going to give out right now. And we're going to the SEC. We're going to the jungle here, and we're backing Auburn just to win the SEC regular season here at plus 300. Ari, it's pretty top-heavy, I'd say, in terms of all the coaching carousel that we've seen in the SEC, right? There have been a couple coaches that have stayed, right? In Alabama and Auburn. Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, they've stayed. Instead of all this coaching carousel we've seen with, obviously, Kentucky bringing in Mark Poe from BYU, with Coach Cal going to Arkansas. Obviously, Muss leaving as well. We've seen a lot of movement, but I love this Auburn team and what they've built, right? And now the attractive pick is Alabama, right? And I get it. Number 2 overall team to start out. They have Mark Sears, arguably one of the best, you can say the best guard in the country, in terms of what he's going to be doing this year on the court. They have the talent, right? They have the guys, but I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain that throughout the regular season, right? I love Alabama, right, in the non-conference slate. Obviously, I think they have a great start. They loaded up, obviously, like they usually do. But I think the non-conference is going to be where they shine. And I think that's where Auburn is going to turn up, because Auburn, I think, is going to be a dark horse for the potential national championship as well, which I may get into in a little bit later. But you look at this team, right? They still have Janai Broom, right? One of my favorite guys. He had a little bit of a down year last year, right? It wasn't his greatest performance last year. We saw that game against Yale in the first round where they just absolutely no-showed, just horrible game. They lost, obviously, tough game. I think what they've done in the offseason to rebuild and just be a contender again in a, you can kind of say weaker. Well, obviously, like I said, even though Coach Cal has brought in stars for Arkansas, right? Arkansas is going to be the more attractive pick for a lot of guys because everyone's like, oh my God, Coach Cal, Arkansas, you got to take Arkansas, right? I see that point. I see your Kentucky points there. I even see people taking Texas, right? I understand. There's the hype with Trey Johnson and Tremont Mark and Jordan Pope and those guys down there, right? But what Auburn has done, right? They still have Janai Broom, who is a preseason All-American, right? They bring in my favorite guy from, all right, I think you remember this guy, J.P. Piguez. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I loved backing this guy at Furman. This dude's a bucket, right? He can ball. I love him. They bring him in from Furman. They still have Denver Jones. They're going to have those two starting, right? They have Baker Mazzara, right? Who's a preseason, I think, SEC third team, right? Great wing guy. And then down low, they bring in Dylan Cardell, and they have Janai Broom, right? They have a great all-around team, right? And I think that in an SEC where you're going to need a full all-around team, where you're going to need your two scorers sometimes, and they have depth as well, wing play. I think they have with Baker Mazzara and his dual with his two-way ability. I love this Auburn team, and I think everyone's going to go toward Alabama because of what they have right now and how far they went last year. Right, they were a Final Four team. Everyone sees that, and everyone's going to be looking at Auburn like, why are you back in Auburn? They just were a fraud last year, right? They were first team out. They were there and they went home. Like they went to Spokane and they went back to Auburn, right? I'm backing this team this year because I love backing a team who didn't have a great March Madness appearance the next year, right? We go back to 2018, right? Virginia, horrible, right? UMBC, worst upset we've seen in all of March Madness history. What happened the next year, Ari? They went all the way and won the national championship as they brought in great talent, and no one really was wanting to back them, right? Auburn loses to Yale last year. Oh my God, they lost to an Ivy League. They lost to them? They lost to the Yale Bulldogs? I love backing Auburn this year. I love Auburn Tigers this year. I think this is a bounce back year for Bruce Pearl, obviously. Janai Broom, obviously, playing with a little more, adversity after a down year. They bring in some great talent in the portal. I think with what they've done and the talent they have, I think they're going to be a dark horse for the national championship, depending on where they are. Like I said, I don't like looking at Final Four odds and March Madness odds until January because, like I said, none of these teams, obviously non-conference is fun, but as soon as January hits, it's a new level of added play, obviously, with conference because, that's where, you can make or break yourself. So, I don't really take anything, in terms of March Madness and, Final Four, anything serious until January. That's when I start looking at those odds. But for now, I am backing Auburn just to win the SEC. I think they are a great sleeper in this conference. Obviously, like I said, everyone's going to be backing Kentucky, the Arkansas, the Alabamas, Texas, all those popular teams, but no one really wants to back a team that fell off last year after their first game in March Madness, losing to Yale, right? That's where I come in and say you should be backing them. And I love them here at plus 300 here on DraftKings. Taking the Auburn Tigers here, I think they have a great season. I think a bounce back year. Like I said, Virginia, no one really wanted to back them the next year. What do? Excuse me. Purdue. What do? They lose to FDU. Right? Horrible. Embarrassing. Oh my goodness. They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. What did they do the next year? They didn't win, but they went all the way to the national championship, right? It's a trend. Obviously, you always want to back a team after a really disappointing year one or disappointing round one in March Madness, right? And I think Auburn's the team this year. I think after a rough season, last year with how it ended. I think they bounced back, and I think they really stormed the court, and I think they have a great year in the jungle. So I'm taking Auburn here to win the SEC. That's my final future of the week. Obviously, like I said, I gave out UConn to win the Big East a couple days ago. I gave out Indiana to win the Big Ten. And here's the final one, Auburn to win the SEC here at plus 300. So obviously, Ari and I, Monday, we're going to have some more college basketball games, obviously, on the slate with tipping off. I think like games are starting like 8:39 in the morning. So obviously, great day on Monday. Obviously, we're very excited for that. But I know Ari has some plays for tomorrow. Obviously, we got some college football games. Ari, what is your card for tomorrow looking like?
Yeah, 3 plays for me. We're starting off with probably the game of the day, even though it's early in the morning, or in the first slate with Ohio State, Penn State. Number 3 versus number 4. Will Howard against. It's still up in the air if it's going to be Aller or I think Prabula for Penn State. But either way, I'm fading both quarterbacks here and backing both defenses. I think we're going to see an emphasis on the run game for both teams. Obviously, you have Singleton for Penn State, and then you have Ohio State going into a tough environment. And obviously, the storyline for Penn State is that they can't win these big games. They win every other game, and I get that, but I'm just not a huge believer in Will Howard, and so I lean towards Penn State at plus 3 here, and I think they have a chance to win, but my more confident play in this game is the under. I think we're going to see a lot of kind of stall drives, maybe some stall drives in the red zone for field goals and all that. But I think we see like a 23-17 type of finish, like something along those lines, around 40 to 43 points. So I like the under 47 here in the Ohio State Penn State game, and then we're going to Nebraska to cover -7 against UCLA. Nebraska's coming off almost upsetting Ohio State after they got destroyed by Indiana a couple weeks ago. UCLA, they've looked more competent as of late, but I'm still, standing by how I feel about them overall in terms of just fading them. So I think we see Nebraska coming off to a brutal loss and then a tough loss, kind of bounce back in the bounce back spot here against UCLA. I think the game, it's at Nebraska too, which I like as well. So backing Nebraska to get back on track against a team I still don't believe in, UCLA. It was -6.5 up to -7. Obviously, I like 6.5 better, but I think that they win by double digits anyway. So I'll take the -7. Either way. And then going to another team I faded going to the year and taking USC to beat Washington. It's -2. I'm just taking just the money line because -122. I'll take those odds. Obviously, the Huskies, they have had stretches of being good and stretches of not being so good. Lately, it's been not so good. USC's also not been so good as of late themselves, but I'm still more of a believer in their offense, in their offense more than the Huskies' offense. It is at Washington, but I mean, USC's played at Washington, how many times, so it's not like a huge deal for me. In that regard, it's not like it's not like UCLA going all the way to Nebraska or anything like that, obviously. So just give me the other team here. I think they're favorites for a reason on the road, even with them not being as playing well as of late. I think they crushed Rutgers, but then they lost 3 in a row before that, including to Minnesota and Maryland, which are both tough losses for them. So give me USC to win a second straight game on Saturday over the Huskies, followed along with Nebraska to cover -7, and then Ohio State and Penn State under 47.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, I'm taking just a week off after a tough college basketball slate, but college football slate. But I obviously had some picks in mind, and I will say, Ari, card I'm seeing right now, we do have a whale. I love Nebraska as well. UCLA, like I said, they are horrible against the pass. I do love that play. Dylan Raiola, finally, like you said, he has been struggling against some of these bigger, tougher defenses, now facing UCLA, who's more stronger against the run. I think he has a better day in the air. So I do love that play for you, obviously. I do like that under for Penn State, Ohio State, like I said. like you said, last year I think it was one of those ugly games as well at Ohio State. It was like a 3-3 game after the first quarter, I think, or near the first half. Just one of those games where obviously both defenses like to prevail more, and I think we're going to see a repeat of that this year. Both defenses, especially Penn State's. You could say these are two of the top 5 defenses in the country, just in terms of how physical they are. And I think we're going to see that again. So I do like that under. But obviously, I love fading UW. I'm never going to tell you not fade UW. In fact, funny thing is, I'm going to be in the Montlake area potentially during that game. So we'll bring my Coup gear out, and we're going to have some fun trolling those Husky fans. But obviously, I do like USC as well on the money line. Like you said, this is a Big Ten matchup, but it feels like I've seen this matchup in a conference before. I'm trying to think of the conference name. Starts with a P. We've seen this matchup before. Obviously, and I think, as you mentioned, USC, they've struggled against Big Ten teams that are more physical at the line, right? Minnesota, Maryland, obviously, those teams a lot more physical. They did have a big, obviously, win against Rutgers, but obviously we just had to fade Rutgers in that spot because Rutgers was coming all the way across the country, playing at 11 p.m. local field time for them. Game ended, I think, almost midnight, so that was like 3 a.m. Field time for them. I know Greg Schiano was already ready to go to bed by that time, so and the way he was play calling, he was already in bed. So I do like USC here on the money line. I do like them minus 122. Like you said, USC now playing against a team that even though they have a good secondary, obviously the Huskies, I do think Miller Moss, does get that offense going, obviously against not as physical Husky defense who has been beat down by some of these Big Ten teams like Iowa, Indiana as well, obviously. So I do like USC for you as well. So already Saturday's card, obviously right there on the screen, USC on the money line, Nebraska -7, and Ohio State, Penn State under the 47. But obviously we got Sunday football as well, and of course this is where I come back in. We are getting redemption after the Bears last week. We're getting redemption this week. I got 3 plays. First, we're going to go to the Commanders-Giants here. We're taking that over 44 here. I liked it at 43.5. I still like it at 44 here at -112. Ari, if you remember the last Commanders and Giants game, right? This was the 7 field goal game. The Giants didn't have their kicker. The game should have gone over. And it was some ridiculous nonsense that barely went under, right? We're hammering that over this week. We're going back to it. Obviously, we looked at the Commanders and we see how this offense looked. Obviously, last week it was a little bit of a struggle against the Bears, but the Bears defense obviously a lot more respectable right now, in my opinion, than the Giants right now. We see how the Bears were handling that pretty much. Even though, yes, Jane Daniels was a little banged up, obviously it was still, the Jane Daniels-led offense for the Commanders who didn't really get anything going. But I think this is where they come back, and I think this is where we see the Commanders' overs really start to flourish again against the Giants. And obviously, this is a rivalry game. This is one of those rivalries where in the football world where you're like, okay, well, it's a rivalry. Well, it's a rivalry, but the Commanders and Giants. Obviously, you would usually say bottom two teams, but obviously the Commanders, great season this year, 6-2, one of the best teams, obviously in the NFL right now with Jane Daniels, and obviously leading the offensive rookie of the year voting. I think he's minus 400 or 450, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then for the Giants, I think we see their offense finally wake up. Obviously, like I said, we saw that game last time where they drove so many times into the red zone, but just couldn't do anything. I think this is where they finally get in the end zone. So I do love this over. Like I said, the over is already climbing. Already went from 43.5 all the way up to 44. I do think this game goes up to over 44 here. So Commanders, Giants, over 44 here. Redemption for the last time. Obviously, I did take that over. And that game went under on the most ridiculous nonsense I've seen. But that's Commanders and Giants football. So I do love that over 44 here. And then we're going to go to the Ravens and Broncos here. And it's ugly. I know it's ugly. You see it on the screen. We're taking the Broncos plus the 10. I bumped it up to 10. I know it's at 9.5 right now. I will still take it there. But for me, I'm taking the plus 10, obviously, for the put potential, obviously, double-digit number. I love that number, minus 121 here. The only reason I'm really backing this, right, I think this is a little bit of a trap game. Obviously, we saw that last time, right? It was the Raiders, right, going to Baltimore, right? The Raiders were 9.5-point underdogs, and no one's like, oh, the Raiders aren't going to do anything. The Raiders, I saw so many people putting Ravens money lines in their parlays. And what happened? Exactly. Raiders won. I'm not saying the Broncos win, wink, wink. But I do like the Broncos to make this game interesting. Obviously, we have the potential Lamar news, which obviously he is a little injured. His Sunday status is still in the air, and even if it is, obviously he's still facing a really hot Broncos team right now, one of the better defenses right now in the league, playing together a really great unit. And obviously, Bo Nix, I think the Ravens are going to struggle to defend the dual threat ability of Bo Nix, especially on the road. I do like it. Kind of reminds me of that Buccaneers game, obviously, where the Bucs were huge favorites and the Broncos going on the road. No one really expected the Broncos to really keep that game close, but obviously with the running ability of Bo Nix, I think he can really trip up this Ravens defense, who obviously we just saw them lose last week outright to on the road to Cleveland. But I think obviously that was just that was a crazy game as well. I knew the Browns are going to keep that game interesting. But in this, I like the Broncos to keep this game close. I love the +10. I know you get it at +9.5 on some books, but I like it there too. But for now, I'm taking the +10 just for myself. But if your book has 9.5 or even as low as 9, I'll take it as low as there. I wouldn't take it anywhere below 9 for now, but depending on where the value is on Sunday. But I like the Broncos here, plus the 10 here, -121. And then my final play on Sunday, taking the Packers here, plus the 3, -115. I don't usually fade Jared Goff often, right? I've loved backing the Lions this year. They're obviously, I gave them out as to the team to have the most, I think, to win the NFC or have the most wins back in the NFL futures. This team is for real, right? We see how this team looks offensively. They put up 50 points. They put up massive numbers against the Titans at home, and everyone's talking about how the Titans obviously a respectable defense, right? But it was at home, and we know Jared Goff is so good at home, right? And now this is the first true outdoor game, right? Going to Lambeau Field, going to Green Bay, and it's obviously November, so it's a little chilly. So he's going outside to face the Packers, right? And even with the Jordan Love news, obviously, there's questions about his status. We know that he's injured. This line's been moving all week. I know I saw it as high as 3.5. I've seen it as low as 2.5. Right now it's at 3. And I think it's just because, we saw Jordan Love limited in practice, I think, yesterday. But neither here nor there. I love the Packers just to cover the 3 here at -115. I don't think the Packers might win this. I'm not going to say I'm not going to sit here and say that they lose this, but I'm not going to say that they're not going to lose this by more than 4. That's all I'm saying. I think they're going to keep this within the field goal here. I love taking a home dog here in the Packers, especially just not really fading the Lions, just more fading Jared Goff in this spot. Obviously, we talk about the Lions being so good. They put up massive points, but they did that at home, right? And on the road, obviously, they are good, but I don't really like them in this spot. We know the Packers secondary, obviously, one of their stronger suits, obviously, with guys like Xavier McKinney, one of the 2 top corners in the league. I think they put the straps on, and we know it's going to be personal because the last time we saw it was, I believe it was the St. Brown game where he gave a smooch to the crowd or some nonsense like that. I know Jair Alexander just not going to forget that, right? We know he's not going to forget that. So I think the Packers keep this game close. Obviously, both NFC North teams, you can honestly say this is honestly for the NFC North title race right now. You can say that for almost any team in the NFC North right now with how good the NFC North's looking right now. But I'm taking the home team here plus the 3. I love the Packers here. Obviously, just fading Jared Goff in this spot on the road here, backing that Packers defense at home. Obviously, I know the JMO news was last week, but I think this is the week where we really see it play precedent because they don't have that deep ball threat. And obviously, Amon-Ra is probably going to be locked down by Jair Alexander a lot game. So, they may have to rely on that run game a lot more. And if they stop the run, obviously, force Jared Goff to throw. I don't really know how that does against that secondary. So I like the Packers here, just cover the 3 at home. Those are my 3 plays for Sunday. Commanders, Giants over the 44. Broncos as road dogs against the Ravens plus the 10 at -121 or whatever your book's at. Like I said, I like it all the way down to 9. And then the Packers plus the 3 at home against the Lions. Like I said, I don't know where that line's going to move after the Jordan Love news comes out, but I still like the Packers as home dogs, if he's still playing. But like I said, if potentially if Malik Willis is starting, I would maybe lean away from this. I'm going to wait and see what the news is on Sunday, obviously, but the Packers plus 3 is going to be my one of my plays for now, depending on what that news coming in on Sunday is. So those are my 3 plays for now. Ari, what do you like on Sunday?
Yeah, 2 totals for me. We'll start off with the Bengals Raiders under 46. This is pretty much as simple as the Bengals offense just not being the same without T. Higgins, who's doubtful for Sunday. And then the Raiders, we saw last week against the Chiefs. They're a team that really just wants to kind of maintain possession and have a bunch of control the clock with their run game with Madison and a bunch of kind of short passes to Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, their pass catcher. So it's really just I think it's gonna be a pretty slow game. I think the Bengals defense can bounce back after they got blown out by the Eagles last week. Look for them to bounce back against the Raiders offense that, isn't the most potent, to say the least. And then the Bengals offense and Burrow also aren't the same, without T. Higgins. And, we could see Max Crosby, get to Burrow a couple of times, of course. So I think this is going to be even though it's like a 20-17 type of game, like a pretty low scoring game. So I like the under in the Bengals and Raiders, and then going to an over with the Bears or Cardinals. I was going back and forth between the Bears ML. I think they bounce back and get the win, but I just went with the over in the game. I think this total is way too low. I think we get like a 30-27 type of game, 27-24, even something like that. Obviously, the Bears coming off arguably the worst way you could lose in any sport, with the walk-off Hail Mary. The Cardinals have kind of found their rhythm as of late, with Kyler Harrison, Marvin Harrison coming off his best game, or one of his best games of the season. James Conner, they'll continue to feed him. Obviously, I think this is a good matchup for the Bears offense against the Cardinals defense that, has been good at times, but I'm still not fully, scared of them or anything. I think the big matchup here will be the Cardinals' red zone offense against the Bears' red zone defense, which are both towards the top of the league. So I think that'll be a matchup to watch. But, I think we see the Bears kind of respond from their brutal loss last week. They're still obviously in the good spot overall for the season. So I think we see them kind of respond and bounce back offensively against the Cardinals defense, and then vice versa for the Cardinals offense. Bears defense is tough, but, we saw the Cardinals offense. They've been good as of late. Kyler has found his consistency as of late. So I think we see a game probably both in the high 20s and kind of soar over this 44.5 line as Korea's Wi-Fi looks like cut out. And he's back. But yeah, just going over in the Bears Cardinals and then under in the Bengals Raiders.
I mean, with the Bears Cardinals, I actually was leaning the other side. I did like the Cardinals, but yeah, the Bears thing after Sunday, I want nothing to do with the Bears. After Sunday, I want nothing to do with the Bears. I got sold so hard, but neither here nor there. Obviously, I do like that over as well. I think there's going to be a lot of points there. You mentioned, the Bears offense, I think they do really start to get things going against this Cardinals defense here. Obviously, not the greatest against the run, so I do like guys like DeAndre Swift on Sunday as well. And then you mentioned the Bengals without T. Higgins, just not the same kind of offense. Obviously, more obviously locked down on guys like Jamar Chase. Obviously, not opening the field up for him as well. So I think the Bengals do struggle to get moving offensively. Obviously, you mentioned guys like Max Crosby for the other side. Potentially getting to Joe Burrow all day. And eventually for the Raiders as well, their offense just not great at all. And I think Trey Hendrickson has a great day as well. So I do like that under as well for you. Just backing both defenses here, in this kind of weird spot, obviously with injuries as well. And then the Bears Cardinals just backing points, as you mentioned, Marvin Harrison, back for this team. And I think the Bears, I think their defense is good, but I think they have a trip up here against, a Cardinals offense, which is also very good. Obviously, they did their job, obviously handling the Commanders to under 20 points on the road last week. But, obviously they got to do another job. And I think obviously might be a little banged up against, this, going into this, not just physically, obviously, just going against that emotional game, obviously, now going on the road again to Arizona here, obviously, just backing that offense the way Kyler Murray is leading it. I do like that play for you on Sunday. So full weekend going back all the way to my college basketball best bet. Here you go with the Auburn to win the SEC. The future here, my final future, there plus 300. Ari's picks for Saturday, he got 3 of them. Ohio State, Penn State going under there, 47. Nebraska -7 there, -108. And then USC just straight up on the money line there at -122. Then my picks for Sunday here, I got 3 of them with Commanders, Giants going over 44 at -112. The Broncos covering that 10-point double-digit spread there. For me, like I said, all the way, I like it all the way down to 9, but I still like at 10 here at -121. And then the Packers +3, like I said, depending on the Jordan Love news, I still like it here, but if Jordan Love is not playing or is ruled out officially, I may switch up that play depending on what happens there. But I still love the Packers here as home dogs, plus the 3 at -115. And then going to Ari's 2 plays on Sunday with the Bengals and Raiders under the 46 there. Just 2 offenses, not obviously with T. Higgins out, just backing both defenses here, fading both offenses. And then the Bears and Cardinals, obviously just backing both offenses here. The Bears offense against a really shaky run defense in the Cardinals. And obviously the Cardinals, I think they can do just enough to keep this game close against the Bears, obviously. So obviously our full weekend, you can find all of those picks on our full card below, AKP Sports Talk. We'll have obviously the last college basketball future posted momentarily, and obviously Ari's card posted tonight, and then Sunday we'll have that full card posted Saturday night, of course. But obviously we'll be back on Monday, and of course Monday, obviously Ari, the return of college basketball. We are so excited for this. Obviously we've been waiting for this. We have college basketball on our screens again. We're going to be doing a lot of first half unders for that day, obviously, as Ari said. A lot of first half unders, obviously, with some of these games, some of these schools I've never even heard of. You may see some schools you'd be like, is that even a real school? Yes, they're a real school, and we're going to be hammering some of those first half unders. So tune into that. Obviously, we'll have our full recap from this weekend, and of course, we have a Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and the Bucks. Kind of ugly spread, kind of ugly total, but we're going to figure out our best winners for that one as well. So we hope you have a great weekend. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will be back on Monday.